Okay, let's begin. My name is John DiGirolamo, and I'm here to talk about my latest book. It's not about the predator, and let's just jump right into it. So, what this book is about, and what I'm going to talk about, is not about the predator so much, but what you need to know and what you can do. A lot of these slides are included in my book. It's about a 32-page booklet that is essentially a genesis of this presentation and goes through bullet points. It's very common sense oriented. And we're going to talk about a lot of the issues of the day. So, we're going to talk about teen sexting, being aware of those predator tactics, and then practical tips for parents. So, one of the questions I always get is, well, how worried should you be? And so my answer is going to be, well, you should, because it starts in middle school and it gets worse in high school. So let's start with some of the influences on that teen brain. So what's going on in today's youth is a lot of the teenagers, they really want to get those clicks, those likes, those followers, and they want to be famous YouTubers. They want to be influencers. And in order to do that, you've got to outdo everybody else on the internet. And what are some of those results? We're going to talk about those. And they've just got a huge desire for a large number of followers. So you might think that having 1,000 friends is a problem on your friends and followers, but to a teenager, that's a goal. So there's a disconnect many times between parents, grandparents, and that teenager. And kids these days, they're really bombarded with sexual messages, especially about celebrities. You can't go a day without looking at the headlines and seeing stuff like this. This just happens all the time. So the question that parents are asking themselves is, what is that culture telling the girls? Well, it's telling girls that's how you get attention. That's what you need to do. That's how you become, quote, famous. That's how you get a lot of friends, followers. What is that culture telling the boys? Well, it's saying that's what girls should be acting like. That's what your girlfriend should be acting like. That's what your classmates should be acting like. So it's giving this kind of warped view of those relationships. And that is something that we're seeing in our culture today. Matter of fact, when it comes to sexting, a lot of times what happens is your kid may not be doing something like that, but they could be on a group chat. So here's a headline recently about 20 middle schoolers investigated because somebody sent an inappropriate picture to someone else, and instead of deleting it or keeping it secret, they sent it to 20 other people. So now your kid potentially has child pornography on their phone. And if you go to read this article, it talks about how there was peer pressure for these girls to send these pictures out. And of course, both the receiver and the sender are breaking the law. And unfortunately, this is a common occurrence that does happen. Now, if you talk to police officers, they're not looking to arrest a bunch of eighth graders. But what they are looking to do is to find out if there's something more nefarious going on, such as extortion, something like that. That's definitely going to get the attention of the police. So I've got several slides and quotes from the National Center on Child Exploitation. And one of the things that they say, some of the stats is self-produced images. 17% of children are sharing their own images. 50% to someone that they have never met, and 42% sent to an adult. That's a big problem. That's a big number. 33% of those kids are saying, yeah, this is normal. This is happening every day, everywhere. And these are things that you need to be aware of so you can have those conversations with your kid. And when we're talking about pornography, 72% of those websites are self generated imagery. So it's not necessarily the creeper in the basement taking pictures. That does happen. But when it's self generated, and a lot of predators are asking for self generated images, they're going to land up on these kinds of sites. And then finally, 90% or some of those statistics, they're uploaded somewhere else. So that means most likely it's the minor who's actually making those images themselves. So let's talk about some headlines. We've got a hypersexualized society with pornography as its influence today more than ever. So, well respected nonprofit talks about the Dirty Dozen, popular websites that really are profiting from abuse, exploitation. Those are mostly names that you're going to recognize. They're either profiting or they're linking to other inappropriate websites, and I'll have some more slides about that as well. So, you don't believe me? Well, um, there's a pop star called Billie Eilish. I have no idea what song she sings, so don't ask me. And I couldn't name a song, but she's very popular with the, say, 12 to 20-year-old crowd. She's about 20 or 21 now. You can read the quote that she was exposed to pornography at age 11 and admits it now how it really impacted her. Another headline: three-quarters of all teenagers have seen such images by the age of 17. Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, they are not a parent's friend. They're going to link to these inappropriate sites. They may say that they ban these images, but images go up in a matter of seconds. They come down in a matter of seconds. So it's very difficult for anybody monitoring these sites to really know what's going on and stop everything. Let's face it, big tech companies are not looking out for you. And the way that the trend in pornography is more violence, and a lot of these teenagers are talking about how they're seeing things such as rape scenes, things like that. Very disturbing, big problem out there. So it's much different than your grandfather's Playboy hidden under the seat of the toilet. So, and pornography, a lot of people are saying that it's now causing a lot of addiction. It physically changes the brain. It rewires it. There's a website called Fight the New Drug that has a lot of information about that, and you could see people interviewed there and all the things that they have to say, and kind of how they got into it, and then how they got out of it, and how incredibly destructive it can be. It can wreck marriages, relationships, etc. And of course, what it really does at its core is to deform that relationship, the view of relationships. And of course, what happens is that is viewed when somebody is very young. That's the view that they're growing up with. That's the view that they're influenced most by. Talking a little bit more, the average age of someone being exposed on purpose or not on purpose is about 8 to 10 years old. That is incredibly young. We're talking about elementary school kids. And what happens is when you see such images at a young age and you see it over and over again, then that starts to normalize those kinds of images. So if you're in middle school or you're in high school and somebody asks you for a picture, it doesn't seem all that bizarre if you've seen these or created content. So it's normalizing this kind of bad behavior. And as I mentioned, there's links to these kinds of sites under the most popular for adolescent and teen: Kick, Snapchat, and TikTok. There's X-rated cartoons featuring Disney characters. Sometimes a kid might, type in something about the movie Frozen, and the next thing you know, they're 2 or 3 clicks away from something that you as a parent are probably not wanting them to view. Again, we talked about society. The celebrities, it's very much an in your face, how do we outdo each other in this kind of arena? And some predators will use fake celebrity profiles. I was reading an article the other day how somebody had created a fake profile of Justin Bieber and contacted teen girls: send me your picture. Oh, it's Justin Bieber. Well, not really, but that's one of the tactics that they're going to use. Now, researchers ask the teens, why are you doing this? And they'll say things like, this is the way to express yourself, curiosity, a new way to flirt. This is different than generations of old, or even parents that are in this room. That's not how you grew up. in kind of this pre-smartphone technology environment that we're all in. So let's talk about that teens world. Well, they get a false sense of security. Somebody will say, "I won't share your picture," or send it here. It'll disappear in 20 seconds on a Snapchat. Well, not really. There's a tremendous amount of peer pressure that's going on. I've talked to middle schoolers, and that's what they tell me. This is what research also says. Let's face it, some parents are going to say, well, it's going to happen anyways, just try to be safe about it. I'm here to tell you that there's no such thing as that safe scenario. And the other thing that they'll say is this is a big adrenaline rush, I did it on a dare, etc. But unlike, maybe your generation who did something as a dare, well, only the 2 or 3 people that saw it ever remember it. It's not on video, it's not living on the internet forever. So McAfee, a big security software, their headline is, yeah, this is the norm. So it's not just me making stuff up, trying to scare anybody. This is what's happening in the world. So I like to tell parents to, when they get home, go and type in how to safely send nude pictures. And you're going to see results that tell your teen you can send pictures safe. And I'm here to say that is a false sense of security. It is not going to happen. There is no such thing. So, for example, 17 magazine, obviously targeted toward teenagers. What you should know. What does that magazine advise? Send to a trusted friend. Send it safely with different tips. Not possible. I don't know about you, but teen relationships don't always last. So the person who you think you're in love with when you're 15, all of a sudden you hate each other 6 months later. Guess what? The picture that teenager has sent is now widely distributed. So that's a big problem. Again, parents' websites, they're gonna send these, so I'm okay with that. So let's talk about that false sense of security. The internet's telling them it's too easy. You have a smartphone, click, selfie, boom, done, sent on a text. It's literally seconds. And people are relying on that Snapchat, auto delete, something like that. But you can there's all kinds of programs that'll save what comes up on your screen. It's not really going to go away. So again, peer pressure. A lot of times that comes from a romantic interest. And kids today, they're going to look at online friends as the equivalent of a real life friend they know in person. That's different than any other generation. And I don't know about you, but that's not how I flirted when I was in high school. And so this is something that every parent needs to be aware of. Teens are doing this to impress others, but it can lead to all kinds of problems. Again, the adrenaline rush, those feelings are overcoming any kind of logic. And again, kind of the risk taking scenario. And bad parenting, in my opinion. If you're not paying attention, you definitely need to start to be. And again, if somebody wants to be the friend instead of the parent, I think you have potential for problems. We could talk about traditional values as well. We live now in kind of a hookup culture that people are getting married later. There's a lack of relationship, intimacy, love. Those kinds of things are really not valued by the modern society as they once were. Poor decision making. Every teenager can be rash and can be, impulsive, but in today's internet world, those consequences are going to have different consequences than they did a generation ago. There's conflicting messages as well. You hear about the glamorization of sex work, that it's empowering. OnlyFans, which is a where people are paying somebody to watch somebody do something. If that's how that to me is the way that you objectify women. That's not how you really show respect for other people. But that's what society is telling us. Now, who loves all of this stuff? The predators love all of this. They love that kids are watching pornography at a young age. They love that sexting is going on because if they're one of those 1,000 friends, they might get on one of those chat message groups. So when they ask for something, again, it doesn't really seem all that strange. And hey, teenagers have always had self-esteem issues. You want popularity, etc. And so some of this is also driving it. And what's the outcome? Well, they're all pretty much bad outcomes. You've got cyberbullying, depression, revenge porn, extortion, self-harm, etc. So all of these are pretty bad outcomes. So it should make every parent, every grandparent want to have those conversations and want to know what they can do. So let's do the math. If you have pornography normalizing everything, you've got society telling the teens it's safe, very easy with technology. You've got peer pressure, high value of social media popularity. Every kid wants to have those likes, who's following my stories, etc. It just logically flows that these are going to be the outcomes that are happening. So, what can you do? First thing is you're going to want to have those difficult conversations. You're going to want to explain what your values are, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. How does that fit in with biblical scripture, for example? You can have those conversations, discuss the dangers, what's going on. It's more than just embarrassing because it can get out there and it can be very difficult once it's shared with a lot of different people. And you've got to have those conversations on a regular basis. You can't just do it at 12 and be one and done. You've got to have it on a regular basis. Now, teens have always been sneaky. When I was a kid, if I wanted to be sneaky, I'd have to be very creative or I'd ask my friends. Now they just ask Google, Alexa, Siri, and YouTube. So again, I encourage all parents to go to YouTube and type in what to do if you have strict parents. Guess what you'll find? I did this a few months ago and I found this. How to be sneaky, the advanced version. Note I have an arrow pointing, you probably can't see, it says 974,000 views of this young lady smoking a bong in her bedroom, and it's the advanced version. So there is a regular version out there, and it just goes on, page after page after page. And so if it's easy for me to do this, imagine if a kid, and again, it might not be your kid, it could be one of their friends or someone on their volleyball team. It could be somebody who then exposes your kid to some of these things. Now, there's something called spoofer programs. So we're going to talk about that. So one of them is a fake GPS location spoofer. So you think your kid is at the library, you have the Find My Friends app, that's great. But if they download a free 10 million download view of a spoofer app, they'll say where they want that phone to tell everybody where you actually are. So they're at a party, but you think they're in the library. So these are kind of the apps that you need to be aware of. Type in spoofer apps and you get pictures, you get instructions by teens for teens. They give step-by-step instructions. So somebody who really likes math, they have a calculator program. It does real math. They're doing their math homework, but notice the second line says hide photos, videos, and secrets. And again, this is a free app. So hidden folders in popular program Snapchat. I'm sure you guys have heard of this. So you might be looking at your kid's Snapchat story. Looks appropriate. Great. No problem. But did you know it has a My Eyes Only folder that is secret and anything can be put in there? I didn't know about this until I saw this article. So again, something to be kind of aware of. You can go to a free site called WikiHow. You might use it to take a great picture and find out exactly how to set your camera settings. You ever go to these websites and you type something in and then it says, well, if you enjoyed this article, show me the next article and show me the next article. Well, I typed in something about sneaky kids and this is what I found. How to hide things from your parents. Next article. How to hide your online activities from parents. How to be secretive about your whereabouts. How to have sex without anyone knowing. All free. So, other ways that kids can circumvent parental controls, they could start the phone in safe mode. You've set a time restriction on your kid's phone. 10 o'clock, that phone goes off. Not if they've set it to Hawaii time. You can create a new Apple ID, reset the factory settings. You can delete and reinstall apps. Some will even go and buy a burner phone and etc. All those things. Or you can just look up circumventing parental controls and you can rename apps. So you think it's some appropriate application when in fact it's something completely different. You can also hide apps. You can also type that in and you can get all kinds of different apps. I just did a quick type. These are the ones I found. Notice a bunch of them say secret. If your kid has an app with the word secret in it, I'd ask questions. So what can you do? Well, if you have an iPhone, for example, and you look at an application, it's either going to say get or it's going to show a cloud symbol, which means it's already been downloaded. You can also do a left swipe to see what applications are on that phone. If you've got Android, you can go to settings, see what's been enabled. However, our good friends at WikiHow will then tell your kid how to hide them on Android. So it's, that is just out there. You have to assume that this is out there. Now, there are parental controls that you can purchase. These are some of the most popular and recommended. Again, this is the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. So they're recommending these. This is in my book. And the one conversation you absolutely want to have with your kid is, I don't care how mad you are at me. Whatever you do, don't put on your social media, I hate my parents, or I just ran away, because that's like a big arrow pointing to the predator to come and talk to your kids. So definitely have that conversation. Now, why are these predators doing this? Well, there's three main reasons. They're either going to be looking for explicit content, they want money, or they want to meet. And we're going to talk a little bit about that going forward. So, stranger danger in 2023. So, you probably wouldn't let your 10-year-old walk the local mall all by him or herself and talk to 20 different strangers. So, why would you have their child talk to 20 strangers online? This is the new digital age that we live in, because trouble can happen to your kids while you're at the kitchen table. You're making dinner, you think they're safe, but that predator is in their pocket because that's where their phone is. The predator could be online right then and there with your child, extorting them, chatting them up, etc. Because now don't talk to strangers is digitized. Because what's the great equalizer? Well, it's Wi-Fi. If you're connected, you could be in Spokane and be seen by anybody in the entire world. So that's the great equalizer. It doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, black, white, whatever. No matter where you are, if you're online, and other people can see that. So you have to realize that a 15-year-old is born in 2008. Now, old guys like me, that doesn't sound like it's all that long ago. But what's been around since 2008? Well, we've always had smartphones, the internet, Facebook, PayPal. Everything is instant. That's the different with today's generation. That's different from any other generation in history. And again, teens will see a large number of friends as a goal instead of a problem. So you've talked to your kids. You've had that conversation. Question is, did it get through? So I've got two examples that is a social experiment. These were with regular suburban kids, ones whose the parents had conversations with them, and the parent emphatically said, my kid will not fall for any kind of ruse. Let's see what happened. So this person parent gave permission to their 5-year-old. And so a guy shows up and he has, guess what? A puppy. Do you want to help me find my puppy? And of course, the parent is watching from the other side of the park, horrified, as the kid goes hand in hand to the other side of the park. And yet they had those conversations. Imagine what happens with kids whose parents haven't had those conversations. So don't be fooled. Your child is susceptible. So maybe you're thinking, well, my kids aren't 5. We've gone through this, no problem. So let's talk about social experiment number 2. So this guy, Kobe Person, 62 million views as of just a few months ago, talking about the dangers of social media. So again, parents gave permission. This guy is 21 years old. He's setting up a fake profile of a good-looking 15-year-old boy, contacts 12 to 15-year-old girls. Parents said they'll never accept a friend of somebody that they have no idea who they are. What happens? 3 of them agree to meet within a week. What happens? Well, the first one met at a park during the day. Not great, but let me tell you, it gets worse. Second one met at her house at night, saying things like, well, we have to wait till my dad falls asleep because I'm not allowed to have boys over the house. Now, if this guy is picking her up at her house, then by definition, she's given her address, home address. The third one did the same thing, got into the white windowless van. The guy said, I'm only 15, I can't drive. I'm going to send my older brother to pick you up. This 13-year-old walks right into the van, and guess who's in the back seat? Mom and Dad. And this girl screams like you wouldn't believe. And of course, the parents are saying, what are you thinking? What are you doing? This could have been some crazy person. And, chaos ensues. And so, but it clearly went and proved that you've had that conversation, but don't be fooled. Now, you think, you must be wondering, well, what were some of those conversations? Well, again, my dad falls asleep. My parents are out. I'm ready. Come and pick me up. Don't be fooled. So, could it possibly get worse? So, one of the people on the video was a 13-year-old, and this young lady had a sister. And so this Kobe Person goes back to the dad and says, hey, we did this experiment a couple months ago. Let's see if I could Snapchat your other daughter. See what happens. Oh, no, it'll never work. This guy, we've had this conversation. The other daughter got in big, big trouble. Guess what happened? The same exact outcome. Picked her up in front of his house. Also caught on video with the parents going ballistic, saying things like, we just had this conversation with your sister Sarah. How could you do this? And the kids are just like, I don't know. But they do. And so I just was shaking my head. Now, you might think that you live in a small-ish community compared to the West Coast, Seattle, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a survey done, small high school, 9th grade freshmen in the health class. There was multiple classes, about 70 kids or so. Just recently did this survey, and some of those results are 24% had over 300 friends and followers. These are 9th graders. So how many friends do they really know? You'd have to wonder. 32% met someone simply from an online relationship. And the most telling, 39% know somebody who's been blackmailed by someone online after sending pictures of themselves. That's a huge, huge number. Now, again, 70%, it's not scientifically, statistically, all that kind of stuff, but just gives you a sense of kind of what's going on out there. So I decided that I'm going to talk to an undercover police officer, a guy named Officer Gomez. He has a Facebook account dedicated for parents that goes through a lot of social internet safety. He has over 100,000 followers. You could find this guy on Facebook. It's in my book, and it talks about he's got all kinds of great content. I suggest you go check it out. So what did he do? Well, he set up a profile of a teenager in just a few minutes. And if you want to get a lot of friends quickly, well, who do you target first? Well, you're going to ask the popular kids. Almost all of them accepted without question within minutes of him sending a friend request. And of course, once you're friends with the popular kids, you're friends with everybody. He eventually got 500 people in middle school to become his friend. And he is in a community just outside Boise, Idaho. So kind of middle America, not a real big, not New York City where a lot of crazy stuff happens. He's there. So he's going to a class and he's telling all these teenagers what he did. They're horrified, not because he is their friend on social media, but because now he knows all the middle school gossip. So a couple of them were getting upset. So he said, "Delete me. Figure out which one is me." He sat there in a classroom for 15 minutes, and not one person could figure out who he was. So if Officer Gomez can do it, how hard is it for any old predator? Well, I'm going to tell you. So then he created a profile of a 13-year-old girl, went online, and almost immediately was getting random requests by people to become his quote friend, followed by private messaging. What happened in those private messaging? Within 15 minutes was asked for pictures of a 13-year-old girl. Within just half a day was asked out for a dinner date. And so he's behind the computer typing, "Well, how do I get to dinner? I'm only 13. I can't drive. Do I ride my bike? What do we do? How does this work?" So this guy clearly knew he was dealing with a 13-year-old. So the guy says, "Meet me at a local motel." And Officer Gomez is, "What do you want to do?" And he was very explicit on the other end. Well, Officer Gomez shows up and promptly arrests the guy. That's the good news. What's the bad news? Well, they had obtained his laptop and he friended over 100 middle school girls. And you've been on social media. It's a click, it's a second to go. So you could just click, 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 and just start sending all these friend requests. 90% of those people accepted without question. 20 had sent pictures, and 2 had a counter at the motel. Now, this guy that he arrested, it was in the late afternoon, and he was late for his appointment, for his rehearsal dinner, because he was getting married the next day. True story. Now, this guy was marrying a lady who had a kid by a previous marriage. Guess how old the daughter was of his fiancée? 13. True story. One of the things that a predator will do to try to get some of these pictures is they'll say something like, "Hey, I'll give you $10 for a picture of your feet." Well, what do you think they're asking for when it's 20, 30, 50, etc.? And of course, in today's age, you can pay with, Cash App, Apple Pay, PayPal. Then whoever that is can go and buy stuff on Amazon or whatever. And so that's one of the tactics that they'll kind of groom that person to try to get these kinds of pictures. So sextortion is definitely a real thing. This particular person posed as a 15-year-old boy on Kik and got the girl to send explicit images and then threatened to send the photos to her videos and to family and friends and etc. Once they're in your network, they now can see who all your other friends are. So it's very easy for them to do it, and quite frankly, they don't care. And I've talked to police officers who had a similar situation like this, and they said that something like this happened in less than 24 hours. So it can be like that. So I know what you're thinking. Boy, I'm glad that I have a son instead of a daughter. Think again. So I asked Officer Gomez, well, what do they do with the boys? Is it different? And the answer is yes. So what they do is there'll be this older, say, college age girl, very attractive, will then send a friend request to some random teenage boy. And then she's going to send him explicit pictures. And she, who knows what is behind this profile, is then going to say, well, I showed you, now you got to show me. And if he succumbs to that pressure and sends real picture, he gets immediately extorted. And that can happen again very, very quick. So you don't have to take my word for it. You can see the headline. This is the new trick for boys of doing explicit images for money. And they're targeting 10 to 17-year-old. Many of these guys are in foreign countries, and they're counting on your kids' embarrassment and not wanting to tell what's going on. On this mom, on this next picture, um, went public because this happened to her son, who was 15, posting as another high school girl, used Google Hangout for messaging. Within 30 minutes, sent a picture. He landed up sending one, told to pay, and unfortunately, he landed up taking his own life. And the stats are showing that this is doubling in just the last couple of years. So this is definitely a real trend. And the nonprofit thorn.org kind of explains that. And it says, a lot of these kids are 13 or younger. 60% are meeting online. The guys are being threatened for money, and the girls they want more content, or they want to actually have some kind of encounter. So it's a little different tactic whether they're targeting boys or girls. So what happens if your kid, what if they make a mistake? What do? Well, you could start by taking, a real proactive approach. Tell them you still love them. You should stay calm, answer their questions, listen to kind of what's going on. You're going to get through this together. Their life isn't ruined. Don't let them fall into depression. Obviously, if you need counseling, that's certainly something that they can do. They can still find love, happiness, success, etc. Because again, the predators are counting on their embarrassment. Law enforcement can help. They can look back at wherever this person, if they're in this country, they can have a law enforcement action. I was talking to a police officer who had a case like this, and they paid the person via Venmo, which is a very popular kind of money transfer system. And so the person was somewhere in the Midwest. They handed it over to the national, feds. And when they went on this guy's Venmo account, he had payment after payment. And like other payment systems, you can put a comment in. And people were putting comment, I'm being extorted and have to pay $200. Comment after comment after comment about how this guy was extorting them. Now, the good news is Venmo is very traceable. They work with law enforcement. And so this guy built a lot of evidence against this guy in a case. So that was great. You should be changing those passwords. You want to block that person, but you don't want to delete the profile because law enforcement might be able to go look if they have your profile on hand. And everybody will tell you, don't pay, because the minute you pay, 5 minutes later, they're asking for payment again. And this can happen public school, private school, etc. But you don't have to take my advice. You can go, again, well-respected nonprofit. They will give you lots of advice, resources, etc. This is the National Center on Missing and Exploited Children, and they will give you, some help and resources there. So, what do they also say? Look at the child pornography trend. It's doubled in just a few words. So it's significantly worse. And sextortion is also up. This is on their website. And they have lots of resources such as NetSmart. They have multiple modules based upon age groups, how to talk to your 8-year-old, your 12-year-old, your teenager, etc., I suggest that that you check some of this stuff out. So you might be asking yourself, is social media safe? Well, I could answer in no, or I could show you 15 more slides. So we're going to show you the slides because your child might not be looking for trouble, but I'm here to tell you your trouble is looking for them. Because the predator can be anyone. It can be someone who is a trusted adult. Now, this nonprofit interviewed teenagers about Snapchat and TikTok. They rated it PG-13 or R. These are very popular with the young adolescents. What did this young lady say when being interviewed? Well, gross nudity pics just show up. So there really isn't control. It doesn't matter if you have private settings or you only have a certain number of friends. Doesn't matter. They just show up. And they identify the dangerous platforms, Instagram, Snapchat, super popular with teens. So back to Kik, a predator's paradise. That's probably not the marketing campaign that they want to use, but they have 300 million users. They advertise themselves as meet new people. Well, that means strangers. So where do you think the predators are going to hang out? They're going to hang out where the kids hang out. And they're saying that they're encouraging these connections, and these predators are pretending to be children, and they can be used to trade child pornography, and chat rooms are dedicated. So one of the research reports, one of the researchers typed in the word fun in Kik, and he was one click away from X-rated websites. It can be anybody. Orthodontist used Snapchat in Michigan to contact a girl in North Carolina. This guy had hundreds of images, attempted to have an arrangement. So he's driving or flying from Michigan to the Carolinas. Orthodontist, you think of that as just kind of this regular, normal person in everyday society. Connecticut man, again, using Snapchat, tries to get pictures from Florida to Connecticut and sent Amazon packages. So by definition, this guy knows the address of that child. And this guy was arrested and had videos of very young children. So what are some tips? Well, you really want to approve the application that it's getting on your kid's smartphone. So ask to buy or purchase approvals, very popular programs. They'll give you a little bit more control. You need to know all the passwords of all the apps on the laptop, tablet, phone, etc. You can enable privacy settings. Now, if you go into the settings, they'll have that where you can do that. But each application also has privacy settings. So you're going to want to check all of those as well, because somebody might take a Snapchat picture, but it's got GPS coordinates. So now that person who has it, if they're savvy enough, they can figure out exactly where that picture was taken. And if it was taken at home, they know that address. So turn those location services off. Don't give a full name or address. I recommend, especially for young children, use a picture of a pet, of the mountains, the river, whatever. Something that's really not all that identifiable. Make sure that they know who are their friends that are on these applications. Chat rooms, private messaging. That's where these predators really do all the work. And some games, they'll have a chat room or message board, and it'll launch into a different application. So all of a sudden now it's out of whatever, maybe it's an appropriate online game, but now it's somewhere in a totally different application, and who knows what's going on there. So really age appropriate social media, in my opinion, does not really exist. You're going to want to check weekly and be skeptical. It's okay to trust, but verify. Be the parent, not the friend. This is a critical time in your kid's development. And I recommend checking everything. Check the room, phone, car, etc. Just say, sorry, you don't have privacy. Buy your own phone, get a job, get your own medical plan, graduate from high school first, then we'll talk. So my kids think I'm too tough, but hey, that's how it goes. And you own the phone, so decide how it gets used. Big thing, have those difficult conversations, talk about the values, talk about why they're concerned, talk about if their friends get in trouble and have made mistakes. That may be a great segue to have those discussions, and know who the friends are, who are those friends' parents, etc. It's really be that involved parent. You're here tonight because obviously you all care. The issue is people who need this the most are probably the ones that aren't paying attention and coming to places like this. Okay, a couple different suggestions. I like to recommend limiting to 200 friends or followers. Um, have your child give you the phone at bedtime. They don't need to be even just wasting time on the internet, surfing the net, reading articles, going through Pinterest, blah, blah, blah. They need a good night's sleep. A phone, a laptop in their room is just going to be a distraction. Don't let anyone else use their phone or laptop. That's friends, etc. And you can install those parental control software programs that we talked about earlier. And a little bit of an old school advice. When I was a kid, I knew lots and lots of phone numbers. Then it became speed dial 123. Now it's contacts, and you have 100 people or more on your phone and your contact database. I know 2 numbers in my contact database by heart. So have your kid memorize 5 real phone numbers of yourself, trusted adult, etc. That will not only be helpful if their phone battery dies, but what if they're in real trouble and they don't have access to a phone? They can't push speed dial 1 or look up contacts on somebody else's phone. Limit that time online. That's for you as a parent and family to decide. Watch for addictive behavior. Games can be very addicting. Social media applications can be very addicting. So, kind of watch for that if they're spending way too much time online. Don't ignore the signs. StaySafe.org says there's 750,000 predators online at any given time. And every teenager goes through difficult times, goes through times when they're lonely or have low self esteem or feel bad or feel isolated. And predators are going to target that moment of vulnerability. So be proactive. So, what are some of those warning signs? Well, if they're spending an excessive amount of time online, definitely a big red flag. Any kind of secret online friends, start asking questions. If they become withdrawn for no good reason or defiant for no good reason, it may be more than just teenage angst or teenage rebellion. Any kind of secret apps like the calculator program, things like that, start asking questions. Any kind of controlling person in their life. Obviously, if they start using drugs or alcohol, that could mean 100 different things, but it could mean that they have been bullied. Maybe they've sent a picture. Maybe now they don't know what to do, and uh, they're turning to drugs and alcohol. So definitely ask questions about that. Second cell phone, big red flag. That can mean all kinds of problems, up to human trafficking, which I've written a book about. Missing school activities, drop in grades, any kind of change in behavior. It can mean lots of things, but it could mean that it's time to have that conversation. So maybe you don't want to get your kid a smartphone. Well, there's dumb phones out there. There's 2 dumb phones. I've not really used them, but I have seen reviews on them. You can see up here the light phone is one of them. And then the Gab phone is another one. So something to kind of talk about. So, different ages, need different conversations. And so, uh, younger children, talking a little bit about, what happens, giving away passwords, pop-ups, really not trusting everybody. Teenagers, different conversations. Again, the cyberbullying, the sexting, etc. So what's that takeaway? This meme up here shows the I don't know, 9-year-old talking to the parents. Well, should they just give him a smartphone or drop him off at the bad guy's house? I couldn't say it better myself. So the predator is in the pocket. If they're online, the predator has access. Teens are always one step ahead of the parents. So definitely realize that you're not always in control, and kids can be tricked. They can be fooled. They may be unsuspecting. Your kid might be a perfect angel, but you never know what they're going to stumble upon, or somebody is gonna contact them with, "Hey, I play soccer too," and, "Oh, okay, let's be friends." And so you want to be aware of that. And clearly, unsupervision can lead to different problems. So, kind of wrapping up the presentation here. So, I do have some other books. I'll just tell you very quickly. So, I've written a book called "It's Not About the Badge," where I asked police officers about a day on the job that they'll never forget. And so, this is not crime drama. It's not detective work. It's getting to know the people and to see how their personal and professional lives are intertwined. And I would interview these police officers. They're all small town police officers based in Colorado. And I would ask them questions at the end, easy stuff. What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite song? Maybe I'd throw that into a conversation. And I would always end with, what'd you do if you won the lottery? And I'd buy a boat, live on the lake. It'd be great. Um, One of them said, I'd quit my job and I'd hunt down human traffickers. And when he said that to me, I knew that was going to be my next book. So that book answers two questions that everybody has about human trafficking. How do they get trapped, and why can't they get out? And so I profile 4 people: a survivor, law enforcement officer, an advocate, and a brothel madam's tale of redemption. And so you get these 4 perspectives of human trafficking, and they're all in story form. So it reads like a fast-paced fiction novel. It's all kind of their story, their interview, their testimony, and it goes through their perspective of how this impacted their life. And so you'll learn a lot without even realizing it at the end, that you've learned a bunch because it was an interesting plot line for you. So it's written for the non-expert, myself. What do you mean you quit your job and hunt down human traffickers? What does that mean? So I was the non-expert. So I wrote it for people, just regular old folks out there that heard stuff, don't know that much, very surface level. I can talk. I have a whole other presentation about human trafficking. I'd be happy to talk to anybody about questions afterwards. And then, of course, this book, $5, the best investment you'll ever make. All these books do sell on Amazon, so you can definitely tell your friends. So thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Questions? Yeah, so the question is, why give a middle schooler a phone in the first place, right? A lot of times that will come peer pressure from their friends. All my friends have cell phones. If I don't have one, how do I have friends? And they really believe that. So there's definitely pressure back to the parents of somebody saying, hey, all my friends, I'll have no social life unless I'm on social media too. Some parents will say, nope, you get a dumb phone. You can call me after practice. That's all it does. And that's it. And, the computer is in the family room where everybody can watch it, type of situation. So you don't have to, but ninth graders just out of middle school, Every single one of them had a phone, and that was in the survey. Yeah, so the question was, are there other search engines safer than Google? Not really. They all have different, you can have parental settings, but some of these software, parental control software, will help you kind of navigate the internet. There's others, Brave, DuckDuckGo, Yahoo Search. They all have buttons that will kind of make it quote child safe, but it's really it's it's help, but it's not foolproof for sure. Yeah, can they turn off the parental controls? I've seen it, and it's just a button, and it goes on or off. Yeah, you'd have to have a setting to not allow them to change, say, the Google Chrome or the Yahoo or whatever settings. It's pretty easy to do that. And the thing with kids is they're always super savvy. And so you may think you've got it all locked down. I guarantee if you type in, how do I get around the safe search, there's somebody's put a video out on it. So it's, these safety measures are guardrails, but they are not foolproof. And you have to have that um, interaction, and you have to be checking stuff yourself. There are some programs that literally will do keystroke for keystroke screen mirroring, so you'll see exactly what's there. Others will have it'll detect keywords. If they're typing in keywords, you get an alert. Just depends on how locked down you want that to be. And all of those websites, those control software website, they'll tell you what their features are, and they'll have different levels of pay. Basic plan, advanced, etc. Yeah. So the question is, recommending no social media. I think that's a tough one. I think the easy answer is, yeah, just cut it off. I think that's hard to do. I the There's kind of two pieces to that. One is, what have they grown up with? If they're on social media in eighth grade, it's really tough to take it away in 11th grade. So you've got to kind of start that earlier as possible. I would probably allow snippets of social media that you are literally getting word for word what they're looking at, what they're getting, because your kid might be totally appropriate, but who knows what's being sent to them. Yeah, the question is, what about school issued books and or laptops? So a lot of those, they will say that they've got filters on them, and each district is different. They may or may not allow you to load any kind of software onto that laptop. They may only be able to, send in homework type of thing. That's where it's okay. Here's your Chromebook. You're gonna do your homework. Your homework's done. Okay, it comes back to me, um, because, and they can certainly, if they have a phone, they can go to that. But each district is going to be different, and you're going to have to ask about that. But some teachers are going to require submit homework via some kind of file upload system.